All right, so today we're gonna deep dive into something I think is really, really cool. And that is how we are increasingly kind of bringing nature inside.
Yeah.
You know, it's more than just having a house plant. It's almost like a whole design philosophy called biophilic design.
Right, and I think it's really fascinating how no matter how much concrete we surround ourselves with, how many screens we're looking at, we still have this desire, this need to connect back with nature.
Hold on for a second. Discover your dream living space with MoGivers. With cutting-edge AI design, create stunning 3D designs tailored to your style in just 24 hours.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's going away anytime soon.
Absolutely not.
It feels like it's more than just a trend, you know?
Right.
And so I was reading this article on apartment therapy, and they surveyed a bunch of designers, something like 150 designers.
Oh, wow.
Asking them about, you know, what they think is going to be the it pattern of 2025.
Okay.
And you know what they predicted?
What's that?
Arboreal motifs.
Oh, interesting. So, like thinking about, I don't know if you've ever been in an antique shop and you see those like vintage botanical prints.
Right.
Where they have like really detailed drawings of trees and leaves and things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's what it makes me think of.
It's funny because it feels both kind of vintage and trendy at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. It has that timeless quality to it.
It does, yeah. And I can just picture it now, you know, those like whimsical tree patterns in a living room. And it's like bringing the forest indoors.
Yeah.
But what do you think is really driving the resurgence of this particular pattern?
You know, I was thinking about that too, and I think it goes beyond just the visuals.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to something deeper.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's a reaction to our increasingly urbanized lives.
Okay.
You know, we're spending more and more time indoors, surrounded by technology and concrete, and I think we're craving that sense of peace and tranquility that nature provides.
No, for sure.
So bringing those arboreal elements into our homes, I think is a way to create a sanctuary, a little escape from the hustle and bustle.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I can see that. But how is it different than some of the other nature patterns that we're seeing? Like, you know, florals are super popular.
Right.
Herbarium prints are really popular. How is this different?
That's a really good question because they do all draw inspiration from nature.
Right.
But I think there are some subtle differences.
Yeah.
So, you know, florals tend to be very vibrant and cheerful and kind of bright.
Right.
And herbarium prints have that very scientific, almost museum-like quality.
Right.
But I feel like arboreal patterns have a certain rustic and kind of moody charm to them.
Okay.
So think darker, richer colors.
Yeah.
Like deep forest greens, earthy
I
browns.
love those colors.
Yes. And even like blacks and reds.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like that darker color palette almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Which actually feels very current.
Absolutely. It aligns perfectly with that whole shift towards moodier color palettes that we're seeing in interior design right now.
Which is funny because apartment therapy in that same article predicted the 2025 colors of the year.
Oh, right.
So tell me about those.
Well, they're all very much rooted in nature, which makes sense considering the whole arboreal motif.
Right.
But we're talking about shades like deep blues,
Okay.
reminiscent of like twilight skies, earthy greens inspired by lush forests, warm browns like you'd find in natural wood.
So it does feel like that color palette would lend itself so well to creating that kind of retreat, that woodland retreat.
Exactly.
But how do you actually incorporate it without being too much, you know?
Right.
I don't want to feel like I'm living in a treehouse.
Yeah, so I think the beauty of arboreal motifs is that they're incredibly versatile.
Okay.
So you can go as bold or as subtle as you like.
Okay.
You can have like a statement piece, like a wallpaper or a tapestry with a large scale like forest scene, or you can start small with textiles.
Okay.
So throw pillows, blankets, curtains, even a rug can introduce the pattern in a more subtle way.
So even those smaller touches can really make a big difference.
Absolutely.
What are some other things that they were saying are good, like smaller kind of entry points?
Well, one thing that they talked about in the article was the resurgence of vintage tapestries.
I love a good tapestry.
Me too. And I think they can add a touch of history and drama to a space, especially if you can find one with a beautiful, like, arboreal scene on it.
It's like having a piece of art history right in your living room.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are some smaller touches, but for people who are ready to really dive in,
yes,
what would you suggest?
If you're feeling adventurous, wallpaper is a fantastic option.
Okay.
You know, imagine a statement wall covered in this whimsical forest print.
Oh, yeah.
Or you could opt for upholstered furniture.
Oh, wow.
With a rich woodland-inspired fabric.
That's beautiful.
So there are lots of different ways to do it.
Now, you said earlier that arboreal motifs have this timeless quality about them. Do you think that they'll stick around past 2025?
I really do.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to that innate human need to connect with nature. I don't see that desire fading away anytime soon. So in a way, incorporating those motifs into our homes is like creating this little oasis of peace and tranquility.
Right.
A reminder of the beauty and serenity that the natural world offers.
And we could all use a little more of that.
Absolutely, we could.
But, we've been talking a lot about the visuals.
Right.
What about incorporating other senses?
Oh, that's a good point.
Could that enhance the whole biophilic experience?
I think so, because when you're actually in nature, you're not just seeing trees and leaves.
Right.
You're hearing the wind rustling through the branches.
Yeah.
You're smelling the damp earth. You might even be feeling the rough bark of a tree.
Yeah.
So engaging all of our senses, I think, can really heighten that feeling of being connected to the natural world.
So how do we do that?
Well, that's a perfect segue into the next part of our deep dive.
Woo! I like it. I'm excited. Stay tuned, listeners. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and I'm really excited to get into this idea of like a multisensory biophilic experience.
Yeah.
Because, we were talking about the visuals of these arboreal motifs.
But there's got to be more to it than that.
Absolutely there is.
So how do we go beyond the visuals?
Well, let's start with sound.
Right.
One really simple way to bring in the sounds of nature is with a tabletop fountain.
I love fountains.
Yeah, they're so nice. And that gentle trickle of water can be incredibly soothing.
It's so peaceful.
It's almost like you're listening to a small stream in a forest.
Yeah, you kind of create your own little Zen garden indoors.
Exactly.
What about other sounds?
Well, nature soundtracks are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
For creating a calming ambiance, you can find recordings of everything from birdsong to rainfall to the rustling of leaves.
Oh, I love those.
Even like the crackling of a campfire.
I put those on like to go to sleep sometimes.
Yeah, me too. It's so relaxing.
They're like instant meditation.
They really are.
Speaking of relaxation, I always find that scents can be so calming.
Yeah.
Especially scents that are associated with nature.
Right.
So does aromatherapy have a role to play in biophilic design? Oh, absolutely. Scent is such a powerful trigger for memories and emotions.
Yeah, it really is.
So think about diffusing essential oils like cedarwood pine or cypress.
Oh, yeah.
They all kind of evoke those scents of a forest, and they have this really grounding, almost meditative quality.
I can just picture it now. I've got like my diffuser going with those like really earthy scents.
Yes.
And then I've got all these like beautiful arboreal prints around me.
It creates such a sense of peace.
Yeah, it does. So we've talked about sight, sound, and smell. What about touch?
Touch. That's where natural materials come in.
Okay.
So think about incorporating things like wood, wool, linen, even stone into your decor.
Yeah.
Not only do they look beautiful, but they also feel great to the touch.
Right.
And they really bring a sense of authenticity and connection to the natural world.
So it's not just about having a throw pillow with like a tree pattern. It's like if that throw pillow was made out of a really like cozy wool or linen.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to textiles.
Yeah.
You can look for furniture made from natural wood or incorporated as stone sculpture or a woven basket.
Oh, yeah.
It's about layering those different textures to create a richer, more engaging experience.
It's about creating a space that feels as good as it looks.
Exactly. And I think that's what biophilic design is all about.
Right.
It's about creating a whole atmosphere, a sanctuary that nourishes our senses and our well-being.
It's about feeling connected to nature, even when we're stuck inside.
That's it. You hit the nail on the head. It's about creating a space where we can unwind and reconnect with ourselves.
It's not about like perfectly replicating nature. It's more about bringing in those elements that speak to you.
Exactly.
That make you feel good.
I think that's a really important point. It's all about personalization.
Yeah.
It's about creating a space that reflects your individual connection to nature. And you know what I find really fascinating about this whole resurgence of arboreal motifs?
What?
I think it reflects a deeper societal shift. It's like a subconscious yearning for a simpler, more grounded way of life.
Interesting.
In a world that's increasingly digital and chaotic.
For sure.
I think bringing those natural elements into our homes is a way to kind of create a sense of stability and peace.
It's like we're looking for that refuge.
Yeah, it's almost like we're seeking refuge in nature.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a symbolic representation.
It makes you think, like, is this a way that we're trying to reconnect with something maybe that we've lost touch with?
Yeah, maybe it's like a deeper connection within ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it also speaks to a growing awareness of the importance of nature for our mental and emotional well-being.
Right, like our health.
Yeah, because studies have shown that even just looking at images of nature can have a calming effect on the brain.
Wow, so it's almost like this is a form of self-care.
Exactly.
Creating this space that nourishes your soul just as much as it pleases your eyes.
Exactly. It's about bringing a bit of that natural serenity into our everyday lives.
I love that.
But before we get too philosophical about houseplant, let's bring it back down to earth and talk about some practical tips
Okay.
for actually incorporating these motifs into our homes.
I'm ready. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. Stay tuned, listeners. Okay, so we're back and ready to get practical.
Yes.
I'm ready to actually, take all this information and apply it in my own home.
Okay.
So where do we even begin?
Well, I think like with any design project,
Yeah.
it helps to have a plan.
Okay.
Before you start shopping for, throw pillows or picking out paint colors,
Right.
take some time to really think about the space you're working with.
Okay.
What's the overall mood you want to create?
Yeah.
What kind of arboreal elements speak to you?
So it's not just about slapping a tree pattern on everything.
No, it's about being more intentional than that.
Right.
Think about the specific qualities of those motifs that you're drawn to.
Okay.
Is it the intricate details of leaves and branches?
Yeah.
The rustic charm of bark and wood grain?
Uh-huh.
Or maybe it's that sense of height and grandeur that trees evoke. Once you have a clearer vision, you can start making design choices that align with that.
So you're saying it's like having a roadmap for your design journey.
Exactly. And it can make the whole process feel less overwhelming.
For sure. For sure. So what about some practical tips for actually translating that into a room?
Well, one approach is to choose a focal point for your arboreal elements.
Okay.
This could be a statement wall with a bold wallpaper.
Okay.
Maybe a striking piece of furniture with a woodland-inspired fabric.
Uh-huh.
Or even a large-scale tapestry with a really detailed forest scene.
So it's kind of like creating an anchor
Yes.
for the whole theme, and then you build out from there.
Exactly. Once you have that anchor piece in place,
Yeah.
you can start layering in other elements.
Okay.
Remember those low-commitment options we talked about earlier?
Right, like the textiles.
Exactly. Textiles are fantastic for this.
Okay.
Throw pillows, blankets, curtains, even a rug with a leafy pattern.
Uh-huh.
They can all add visual interest without overwhelming the space.
Right, it's all about balance.
It is.
How do you know when you've added enough?
That's a good question. And I think that's where personal preference comes in.
Sure.
There are no hard and fast rules.
Right.
Some people might want to create a space that feels fully immersed in the arboreal theme,
Okay.
while others might prefer just a touch of woodland whimsy.
So if I wanted to go all out with the woodland retreat vibe,
Yes.
I could do a bold wallpaper
You could.
and then layer in the textiles and maybe even have my diffuser with the
Yes.
woodsy scents.
Absolutely. And you could even incorporate some natural materials,
Yeah.
like a wooden coffee table or a wicker chair.
Oh yeah, to bring in that tactile element.
Exactly. But if you're looking for something more subtle, you might just choose a single statement piece,
Okay.
like a tapestry or a piece of artwork,
Uh-huh.
and then complement it with more understated elements, like a few throw pillows or a simple vase with a branch motif.
I see. Okay, I'm getting it. Now, color, I gotta admit, this is where I get a little bit tripped up because I love those moody, earthy tones,
Yes.
but I'm always worried about things feeling too dark.
Right.
Any tips for working with those colors?
I think the key is to be mindful of the amount of natural light you have in your space.
Okay.
If you have a lot of natural light, you can get away with using richer, darker colors.
Okay.
But if your space is a bit dimmer, you might want to incorporate lighter shades like sage green or sky blue,
Okay.
or even ivory, and then use those darker, moodier tones as accents.
So it's like playing with light and shadow.
Exactly. Just like you would in an actual forest.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Think about how the light filters through the trees, creating that dappled effect on the forest floor.
It's like bringing the essence of the forest indoors.
Precisely. That's what's so beautiful about biophilic design.
It does feel very nourishing and inspiring.
It does. It allows you to create a space that feels both calming and inspiring at the same time.
I love that idea. This has been so insightful.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I feel like I have an actual plan now for how to bring this into my home.
I'm happy to hear that.
Any final words of wisdom?
Just have fun with it.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment and let your own personal style shine through.
That's good advice.
Biophilic design isn't about following rigid rules.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with nature in a way that feels authentic to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this arboreal adventure.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, until next time, happy decorating.